Welcome everyone. We're here today with Ahele Moitra, who's a PhD at the Department of Archaeology, History and Religious Studies at the Arctic University of Tromsø. And today we're going to hear a little bit more about her research. And so, to begin with, what is your area of study? And why do you think that's interesting?
Well, my specific area among that big department is religious studies. Within religious studies, then we have a small team that thinks about this category called indigenous religions. And I work specifically in this region between India and Myanmar, which is called Nagaland. A contested space for many years now, and that's where my work has been for many years. And in this department, I work specifically on this subject.
Yeah, and so you say you work with thinking about indigenous religions. So what does that mean? Like, you're not studying, you're thinking about, like, what are you thinking about?
No, that is true. I say thinking about because indigenous religions as a sort of category has existed in the academy for quite a while. I say category because religion itself is a category, indigeneity itself is a category, and often at institutions like these, like the university, we say, okay, R for religion, I for indigeneity, H for history, and we put our data into these boxes, and we know by looking at feathers that something is indigenous religion, as opposed to what is monotheistic religion. So this was a colonial enterprise, of course, which began classifying different people into different religious boxes so that missionaries could come calmly and say, this is religion, this is tradition, culture, all of that. Let's eliminate all of this. Let's set up religion. So this sort of study has been a part of a huge colonial enterprise for a long time now. So when we think about indigenous religions, what we do is we think about these categories, about how they are in use in day-to-day life among people we identify as indigenous. How do they use these categories? At what point of time do they use it? And how do they engage with it? Maybe there is nothing known as indigenous religions among the indigenous people. So it's thinking about these things in the field of indigenous people.
Yeah, okay, so that's really fascinating. And so, like, specifically, how do you go about this? Do you have like a specific area of the world that you study?
Yeah, so like I said, imagine India and Myanmar. You know the map of South Asia, right?
Yeah,
so,
more or less.
Yeah, so it's Southeast Asia. It's in this conjecture between India ends, Myanmar begins, and this is where the peoples are in the highlands and hills. In Nagaland, and specifically I look in Nagaland within a newspaper to see how do people articulate around these sort of, when are they using the networks of something known as religion, or when are they using networks of something known as indigeneity, and who uses it, under what context, and I see how the newspaper comes in use for people who want to engage with these spaces. That's where I specifically.
Yeah, so that's interesting. And I've heard you have a background as a journalist, which seems fascinating to me because now you're working as an academic, and maybe you could say something about like was it like working as an academic, and what's it like working as a journalist? Are there similarities, differences? How do you approach your work in these two ways?
It's been quite a bit of a challenge for me, of course, because journalists are also primary collectors of information. We are collecting information on various things every day with the end result of sort of disseminating to the public. As an academic, the point of switching over from journalism to academia is also to open up the field more, because you have more conceptual ideas here. You have tools to think with about things that you've already been engaging with, but you've seen them for so long that the field is no more opened up to you. It's all closed boxes, you're asking the same question, you're getting the same responses. So it's a loop. So getting into academia is also sort of looking at new ways of thinking, new ways of new questions to ask to this field, and it is not necessarily with the end result of, okay, let me talk about it at the end of every stage of my research, but also, it's a long period of study, 4 years. I mean, it's not that long. In the US, they spend 10 years even, but in 4 years, you're able to think about a particular issue and open it up in certain ways, and only then disseminate it. So I think it gives you a longer gestation period with the data. You're able to look at the empirical things like data coming out of your field in a way that you're not feeding your confirmations and stereotypes, but saying something new about it. So I think it's been challenging for me.
No, but I think you explained it in a good way, and it's interesting, like, to hear from someone who has like both of those backgrounds. I think that's all we have time for. So thank you for your time.
Thank you
Good
very much. So today we have a philosopher with us to speak about things in education and how we become ourselves in some way through the education we get. How do we become independent thinkers and are able to make the choices we make? And to highlight that, we have Joakim Larsen, who works in philosophy of education at the University of Tromsø. And this form of education where we become ourselves is sometimes known as Bildung. And I was wondering, Joakim, if you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this word Bildung, and we use the word Bildung in English. And it kind of refers back to a tradition originating in Germany, the way we know it, and that's why we use the German word, where you focus kind of on, like it started in the Enlightenment, so it's kind of really closely connected to Enlightenment thinking, that like all people should be educated and should be like independent thinkers, as you said in the introduction. And then Bildung is like the tradition within which students are kind of taught or encouraged, is perhaps a better word. They're encouraged to like gradually make more and more choices for themselves, to be passionate about whatever it is they pursue, and to like engage with the world in a personal way. And it's in many ways the basis for the education system in Germany and the education system in like the Nordic countries as well, although the way it works today is very different from like the origins.
I see, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is your area of specialization at
UIT? Yeah, this is what I'm mainly working with. What I'm working with is like how we can construe this today, because I think there is a lot from this tradition that is worth keeping. But in the, like, what should you say, like the climate that we're in today, these thoughts are like, it isn't all of it that's appropriate anymore, this like Enlightenment thinking, and it's kind of steeped in like human exceptionalist thinking and some kind of patriarchalsk, I don't know, the patriarchal, yeah, society. So I kind of want to get rid of those things, but then keep like the good things from the tradition, I guess.
So you want to redefine it in some way?
Yeah, redefine it and kind of, it's a taboo way of putting it, but like update it and stuff.
Update it in some way, okay,
yeah.
But what kind of age groups do you work with in order to be able to upgrade this notion?
Okay, so me specifically in my project, I work with students that are from like the second level of higher education in the school system. So like from 15, 16 till 19, what we call videregående in Norway.
And you're saying that in these age groups, Bildung is already in practice in the education system here?
Yeah, like in a trivial sense, Bildung is always in practice everywhere, because it describes this process where you kind of grow as a person. But in Norway, we have a tradition of working actively with Bildung. And so, like in differing degrees, teachers will like try to elicit a like personal response from the students in the way they teach.
I see. Help me understand this, because I'm not from the system. Give me an example that you may have come across.
So it could be something as easy as like on the one hand, you could just you have this like traditional notion of school where you just repeat whatever, you repeat facts. You study for a test and you just test like the memory retention, like what do you remember from what you have read. But then you can work in a more like integrated way, with like knowing how to understand like how an ecosystem works, and understanding not only how it works, but like how you as a person is fully integrated into that ecosystem, and that your actions, and you can actually go out and test and do and see that the actions that you do in this like local ecosystem actually impacts what happens there. So you could they work with this in kindergartens a lot. So it, like planting trees, it's trivial, but it's working in this way because the children get to see, like, we planted a seed, and then a year or two later there's a tree there, and you get this like kind of different understanding, and you get a connection, which is not only based in books and facts.
And how did you get into this research? Why is it for you particularly?
Well, I'm interested in, like, I think at bottom I'm interested in like what it is to be a good person, and then connected to that you have like the question of growth. How can people grow? How do people grow? Is it actually possible for people to grow? And then you have like this whole tradition describing what it is to grow, and I just felt that it spoke in a language that I could understand. So it's as easy as that.
I see. And the work is, do you focus on specific northern Norway or southern Norway or some parts of Norway, or it's general?
Well, in my project, it will be locally, so it will be just in schools in Tromsø, mainly for practical reasons.
I see. Okay, great. And you are part of a larger research community that is working on Bilbo.
Yeah, it's a small one, but yeah.
But a larger community than you yourself.
There are more people than me, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. There's a lot more that I'm interested in, but for now I think our audience and I get a fair idea of what it is. Thank you very much for speaking.
Thank you.